Okay, so we are going to be showing you guys how to properly input the measurements into the coil line. Now this coil line is designed for Pittsburgh, so we have to change up some of the numbers to convert over for snap lock seam. So we'll show you how to do the snap lock seam. So let's say we want to do a duct, and the duct is going to be a 8 by 10 duct. Okay, we need to convert both these numbers into metric. So an 8-inch, get our little calculator here, is 203.2 millimeters. So that equals 203.2 millimeters. And 10 is 254 even. 254 is 10 inch. Okay, so if we're following along here. So now we can say, now with the, you always do the small number first. So we do 203.2. Now we have to add 0.1 on to the first number, which would make that number 203.3. And then on the second number, we have to, the larger number, we need to add on 9.6. So it's 254 plus 9.6. These are just the numbers you have to do for this machine. So 9.6 plus that, well, let's just do some quick. 254 plus 9.6, or 263.6. Okay, now that we have our numbers, this is the first number, here's our second number, we can now input it into the machine. So let's come over here, turn it on, kiss the camera lady. All right, you have two choices. Clearly we want to do English. This is your current feed length. That tells you in millimeters how many has been fed out of the machine right now. So what we want to do is to reset that. You want to push the metal out. So you do the leveling, and it's going to unroll the coil. So I'll push unleveling. Yeah, hold on, wait. Okay, so you see it's moving. Okay, we pushed it out right there. Watch, I'll pull it back. I'm gonna level it back. Okay, now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut the metal so that the sheet will be perfectly in line with the shear. Come over here. So you push the manual cutting button. Okay, I'm gonna go push it. Watch it over there. Okay. So now it's cut. If you look here, the metal is perfectly in the same, right where the shear's at. So that's 0 millimeters. Now you can go to the current feed length and hold down reset, okay? And then it'll reset. So now we're at 0, and now the machine is perfectly calibrated. So now we can go to automatic. Now these are the numbers that we have to input. 12.7, never change that. That is set, preset for the snap lock. Now we add in our numbers. Come on. Okay, so we want to be 203.3, so we're good on that one. We'll hit enter. Our second number is the let's see if we see it. Oh, sorry. It's this one. So our first number was 203. Our second number is going to be 263.6. So we'll do 263.6. Enter. Now up here on the top, you'll have an L1 bend, L2, L3, and L4. Okay, let me show you what those are. Come over here. So the machine's asking you, do you want to bend up the first bend? This is your L1 bend. This is your L2 bend, L3 bend, and L4 bend. Now for these purposes, we're going to be doing a half duct, like this one right here. So, and we will only be doing the L2 bend, okay? So we'll come over here. Hold on, Cash. So we're going to turn off all of them except for L2. Then this last number here, the setting data, that'll tell you how many half pieces of duct do you want to cut out. So let's say we want one full piece of duct. We're going to click on there and we'll hit 2 halves to have one full duct. Hit enter. Okay. Now make sure all these numbers here are 0. If you have numbers or data in there with these, it'll run the whole order down. So you can have one set of duct as 10 by 20, one set of duct of 8 by 10, one set of duct by 6 by 6, and it'll run through the whole data. Right now we're just going to have the top line, 2 pieces of duct for this video. We hit start. It's going to pull it back. It's gonna notch the first notch right there. Okay, you can see where it's notched right there. That can be adjusted by screwing in this to move this notch bigger, or screwing it out to move the notch smaller. So it's doing the second one right now, the second sheet. Perfectly half. It's going to immediately go to the second half. You can see the notches going. So it should stop now. We have our two halves. If we were to measure this should be 8.5 inches by 10 and 11 and 5/8 to run through the snap lock, which should be on the next video once you look at the snap lock video. So that is how you do the coil line. Maintenance on the coil line. There is an oil reservoir under here that you need to check. You can hear the motor going. Check the oil reservoir. You have to take all the metal out. All this metal out, and then you can reach in right here and check the dipstick. Okay? Besides the hydraulic oil, the other things you have to check for are these Allen wrench bolts will get loose. And so you have to tighten these on. As you can see, this one just came out because this one's broken. These will get loose on all sides. This will adjust the gap between here, between the brake and the press. And on this side as well. So that's how you do the maintenance, checking the oils and making sure that all the nuts and bolts are tight. These are two set adjustments. You have three adjustments. You have the grooving adjustments and the two leveling up and down. So if you come look in here, this is the groover. Depending on how high and low you want it by wheeling that in and out. And these are your two levelings. Now, the grooving will determine how big of a groove you want to put in. You scroll it out to lift up the groover, scroll it in to go down. You can scroll down low enough, it'll cut the metal. So just be careful how you do that. So as you can see here, scroll down, it'll go down. The second thing to do to adjustment is the notches and the squares. If you look here, we have some preset sizes of where they're close to be, 1/2 inch, 1 inch, and then TDF. Those can change based upon how the metal is fed into the coil line. So to adjust it, because there are small increments, you just wheel in or out, depending on, you can kind of watch here, depending on how much of a notch you want to come in there. That notch will measure this right here, all right? So that's the notch, and then this is your square, okay? Now, we like to be about 3/4 of an inch from top to bottom to account for the S and drives. All right, ready? Mm-hmm. Okay, this is our coil rack. It holds the coils of metals. It is rested on two large bearings, one on each side, that side and that side. Now, these coil racks have these adjustments. You tighten these, and this will suck in and tighten onto its metal, but when you're loading and unloading the metal. So when you're unloading, you screw it out, it shrinks in, you can pull this coil holder out and load a new coil in, and then vice versa in reverse to do it in reverse. Now the difference between this metal and this metal, it can be the same metal, it can be different gauges. Usually, and almost always, it's usually a 26 to 28 gauge, and this is a 24 to a 22 gauge. So depending on the order and per SMACNA standards, it'll tell you which gauge to use. And so you'll have to unwind it from the coil line, and then from the bottom here, you feed it out up into the ramp and into the coil line to adjust to change your metals. Also on the back here, if you see, it is controlled by a motor, so it unwinds and winds as needed. To load and unload these, we use the forklift, and you can use a chain, or you can use a straight rod to go inside the middle of them. And that's how you load and unload the coil rack.